Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk to you about creating a snapshot for your personal narrative and memoir. Once you have identified a scene or event that you want to talk about, you want to create some kind of outline or maybe even sketch it out if you're an artistic person and get your ideas in order. So for me, what I did was picked a moment when I remember Mrs. Carbonell and I, who I'll probably call Anne throughout this, maybe sometimes Miss Carbonell. Anyway, when we really got to be closer as friends. And it's when I was going through something really difficult and I finally confessed what was going on to her. And she just gave me the best hug in the world and didn't need to say anything. And it was just perfect, like she is. So here's what I'm going to do. Start off with my events. I remember carrying around this weight and not knowing how to tell anyone. I was taking a leap of faith by telling her, and I remember having her hug me. That is like a very distinct memory. And then I'll end by talking about how that was the real beginning of our friendship. And so out of this heartache, something beautiful started to blossom. So since I've identified these events, I want to figure out which one I really want to build up to and stick out in my reader's head. For me, that is this moment. It's the part that I remember most distinctly. It's what matters to me most. And so I'm going to think of one word, one emotion even, to describe what I was feeling in this moment. And that word for me is relief. So I've outlined my events, at least chronologically. Whether or not I tell them in that order with my piece is left to be determined, but I have them there and I have the word relief. And now I want to describe what having her hug me felt like and try to show that relief. Her arms wrapped around me and I crumbled. I could barely stand. I collapsed against her, the tears running freely down my face. She only held on tighter. All right, so this is just the beginning, a couple sentences, nothing fancy right now, but my idea is to just keep going. You can't edit, you can't revise unless you get something on paper first. So now I want to look for any adverbs that I have, and sometimes, but not always, those are the words that end in ly. And for me, this one stands out. So this is what I'm going to work with. Instead of talking about freely, how else can I say that? I can say I collapsed against her, the tears escaping from their prison and running with abandon down my cheeks. I don't know if I'll end up keeping that. It's a little dramatic, but so am I. And I do like the idea of this prison, and I wonder if I can kind of extend that metaphor and maybe before this talk about how, since I had to feel like I was keeping these emotions inside, that maybe they were locked away, maybe like in a cell of my heart or something like that, so I can continue that metaphor. We'll see. All right, so while I like this sentence more than my original, I would still want to keep going with this moment. And you probably have heard in the past that a good way to do this is to think about the five senses. And so I'm just going to write simple sentences about things that appeal to the five senses. I felt her arms around me. I heard my own sobs. I saw her sympathetic eyes. I tasted my tears. I smelled, honestly, nothing. And that's okay. Not all the senses are going to apply. Probably taste isn't always, but you could do something like if you were really mad that you tasted the hatred in your mouth, like sour something. You can get kind of poetic with that if you'd like. Or now I have these in here. Whenever you are identifying something that you heard or you saw or what you felt, those are called filters. And a really good technique is to get rid of the filters and make this the active part of the sentence. So that's what I'm going to work on doing right now. Instead of saying I felt her arms around me, I could say her arms opened wide, pulling me in as I collapsed against her. So now, instead of me feeling her arms, it's her arms doing the action. That's what makes it more of an active voice. Instead of I heard my sobs, I can say my sobs broke into the silence, telling everything my lips couldn't speak. Instead of I saw her sympathetic eyes said more than her words ever could. I knew she felt my pain, my sorrow. You'll notice a pattern here that I'm almost taking the end of the sentences up here, and that's what I'm beginning with down here. You can do that, but it's not the only way. For instance, I could say my cheeks were wet, salty tears running into the corners of my mouth, but still she held me. So now I have sort of more subtly put in this idea of taste and embedded it in the middle of a sentence instead of at the beginning. And that might be a way to just mix up your sentence structure a little bit. Like I said, I don't really know if I'll keep all of this as I'm writing, but it does give me something to work with and helps me build up the intensity of this moment. So I really hope this is helpful for you guys. Remember that you first want to outline or even sketch out your ideas. Then you want to pick one scene to focus on and identify a strong emotion. For me, that was relief. And you can just describe that in a couple sentences to begin with. Look for adverbs, which are the ones who tend to end in ly, not always. And then write out your 5 senses and remove filters like I saw, I heard, all of those. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and I can't wait to read your pieces.